Now, it's just getting beyond crazy, isn't it? And we have a new contender for the worst premier in the country. Already 12 million Australians are in lockdown. 12 million. And today, another Australian town was locked down too.
Effective from 1 p.m. today, Alice Springs will enter a full lockdown for 72 hours.
Now Alice Springs is locked down as well, even though the Northern Territory today had 0 new infections. Brisbane and the Gold Coast still locked down today too, even though Queensland's 3 new infections today were all of people already in quarantine as close contacts, already safely out of the way. Perth still in lockdown, even though its 1 new infection was also already in quarantine. The lockdown has stopped nothing there either. And Sydney, 22 new infections. Not good, but it looks like they're getting in control of that breakout. No mystery cases today, half the infected already in isolation. Contact tracers are doing their job. So is this lockdown actually doing any good at all? Well, I'll talk to an expert about this circus in a second. But really, if you wonder how this country could get into this obscene situation, half the country locked down, we've had 0 deaths this year and just 1 person in the entire country in intensive care, well, I say to you, Annastacia Palaszczuk, perfect example of the idiotic, paranoid, fact-free fearmongering that is making Australia now an international laughingstock. Now, let me start on this by showing you something. 2 years ago, almost to this very day, newspapers were reporting on all the deaths that year from another virus, the flu. 250 deaths so far that year. 66 of them in New South Wales, 50 in Victoria and South Australia, and 38 in Annastacia Palaszczuk's Queensland. She was the Premier there at the time. 38 deaths just in Queensland. Quiz. But did you hear Annastacia Palaszczuk back then say, alarm, alarm, shut down Brisbane, shut down the Gold Coast, shut down Townsville? In fact, did you hear any of today's health fascists? Victoria's Dan Andrews, Western Australia's Mark McGowan. Did you hear them say, well, that's it. Look at these deaths. Borders up, masks on, stay in your homes. As if. Palaszczuk just burbled along, doing her thing back then. 38 people dead from the flu and just her state alone. Didn't turn a hair. But today, with not 1 single Queenslander dead in more than a year from catching this coronavirus here, not 1 death, she's gone to the other absurd extreme and locked down most of the state. How can anyone explain that? Now, that was bad enough. But today, Palaszczuk disgraced herself. There are 2 outbreaks running in Queensland, both of them caused by her government's bungling. One, an outbreak caused when someone actually caught this virus in a Brisbane quarantine hotel. And the other, caused by a casual receptionist getting infected when she was told to work at a quarantine ward without even getting vaccinated. Can you believe that? And no surprise, Palaszczuk was today under pressure from the media.
There will be a full and thorough investigation, and someone will be held responsible. I've said that clearly.
And so Palaszczuk needed to distract the media, throw it a bone, throw it off the scent. And so, here's what she did, putting lives in danger, in my opinion. She blasted the Prime Minister for saying a couple of days ago, hey, this AstraZeneca vaccine, you know, the one we said that really shouldn't be used for people under 50 because of the tiny, tiny risk of blood clots. Well, now with these outbreaks, with the panic, we're going to let anyone take it at all if their doctor agrees.
If you wish to get the AstraZeneca vaccine, then we would encourage you to, A, go and have that discussion with your GP.
Good call. The blood clots risk is tiny, 1 in 2 million chance of dying. The young, the most vulnerable. That's why it's limited to people above 50. Now, many will say, well, look, That's actually 1 in 2 million are dying. Well, that's a tiny risk worth taking now that there's this virus panic and there's not enough Pfizer vaccine to go around. I mean, you could be waiting months for a jab. But AstraZeneca, you get that right now because we've got millions of doses hanging around. Your choice. Now, when Morrison spoke, the premiers had in fact just agreed with him to legally indemnify doctors who give these jabs, protect them from being sued. But today, Palaszczuk went off a nut, pretending that this did not imply that, yes, she had in fact agreed to let doctors do exactly what she'd agreed to indemnify them against.
There has been no National Cabinet decision about providing AstraZeneca to the under 40s. National Cabinet said that there was an indemnity for doctors.
Someone maybe should wake her up in these meetings. And then off the Premier went. This AstraZeneca vaccine was dangerous and Queensland's vaccination centres would not hand it out. This vaccine that's actually saved Britain, by the way, and the untruths that she told. You know, our authorities had not approved this for the young. The advice had not, had been changed by the Prime Minister himself. And nor had Britain's authority approved this for the young, which seemed to think was the BBC.
I do not think this is the time to risk the safety of our young Australians when the when the UK will not even allow their under 40s to get the AstraZeneca vaccine.
False and false. Our vaccine authority says the young can still take AstraZeneca if the Pfizer vaccine is not available, and it isn't for many, and if the benefit of taking AstraZeneca now outweighs the risk of waiting months for Pfizer. And Britain's vaccine authority says exactly the same. And is there Pfizer available for the young in Queensland? Well, actually, no, they admitted.
We are calling on people to get vaccinated. However, we are running out of stock on Pfizer.
What a joke. And so, we have a Queensland Premier who says she'd rather Queenslanders under 40 go totally unprotected for months than take a 1 in 2 million risk with the AstraZeneca, even with breakouts around the country. And that, of course, means that in her mind, she will make Queenslanders live under the threat of lockdowns for months, maybe a year to come, until almost everyone in the entire country is vaccinated. That is the kind of appalling leadership that's given us these lockdowns. But there's a final twist, a final joke, if you think all this is laughable. Why are we even worrying about vaccinating the young anyway? Why? The young. They barely get the sniffles with this thing. Almost never die. In fact, Queensland's own Chief Health Officer today exposed this whole fraud, this Palaszczuk fraud, when she joined the Premier in scaremongering over AstraZeneca.
No, I do not want under 40s to get AstraZeneca. I don't want an 18-year-old in Queensland dying from a clotting illness who, if they got COVID, probably wouldn't die.
Think about that statement for a second. We have a virus that for the young is even less dangerous than a pretty safe vaccine, even less dangerous than a vaccine. Yet millions of these younger Australians all around the country, all around Australia now, are tonight confined to their homes, hiding from that extremely benign virus. And that is insane.